days as part of preparations for a potential ground offensive. As we just mentioned, Israel has told Washington that it is actually planning a limited ground operation in Lebanon, which could start imminently. Israeli commandos infiltrated Lebanese territory, targeting Hezbollah positions near the border as part of their limited raids to gather intelligence and destroy Hezbollah posts in the area, according to sources. The targeted raids are the latest indication that Israel is indeed laying the groundwork for a significant ground incursion into Lebanon, although the Israeli government does not appear to have made any official decision about it just yet. In the last few days, yet another event in the Middle East has sent shockwaves through the world and stoked fears of a wider regional war. On Friday, Israel assassinated Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, leaving Iran's biggest proxy militia headless. This comes amidst waves of relentless Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon, as the border conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has reached an intensity never seen before. Amid growing speculation about whether the Israeli military will launch a ground invasion of Lebanon next, Hezbollah's deputy leader Naim Qassem has said the group is already preparing for a possible Israeli ground offensive, and that they would also choose a leader to succeed Nasrallah very soon. In the first speech by a high-ranking official since Israel killed the Hezbollah chief, Qassem said the battle may be long, but all options are open. He thanked the Lebanese people and the government. The speech was dedicated to the group's supporters and fighters, and the message was that no matter who dies, the resistance, as they call it, will replace them and stay powerful. He vowed to continue the group's mission to fight Israel and defend Palestinians despite the massive losses that have been incurred by Hezbollah in Lebanon. Qassem said Israel's claims about having hit most of the group's medium and long-range missiles is a dream that they've not achieved, nor will they achieve. We are ready if Israel decides to enter through land, and the resistance is ready for a clash. All the sacrifices that we've gone through, beginning with the pagers to the martyrdom of our leaders and the martyrdom of our Secretary General, would shake armies, populations and organizations, yet we continue. With the pains of these days, with the sacrifices, we continue. That's what Hezbollah's number 2 leader has said. Israel killed Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah in a strike on Friday, which according to Israel also killed 20 other key figures in the group. US President Joe Biden has described the strike as a measure of justice for victims of Hassan Nasrallah. But Iran's supreme leader has said the Hezbollah chief's death will not go unavenged. Amidst a growing threat to the leaders of what Iran describes as the axis of resistance, its supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has actually moved to a secure and unknown location. A senior general in Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps was also killed in the strike that took out the Hezbollah chief. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine has said 3 of its leaders were killed in a strike on central Beirut. An Israeli strike has killed a Hamas leader in Lebanon. Israel also targeted another Iranian-backed group, the Houthis in Yemen. Cross-border fire between Israel and Hezbollah has been reported throughout the weekend. In Lebanon, officials say more than 1,000 people have been killed in the past 2 weeks, while 1 million have been displaced, possibly the largest displacement in Lebanon's history. At least 100,000 people have crossed from Lebanon into Syria to escape the Israeli airstrikes, according to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. As we said, while attacks and counterattacks between Israel and Hezbollah have gone on for a long time now, just the last few days of an intense conflict have completely changed the scenario. Hezbollah's longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed in his underground headquarters in Beirut, a significant escalation in the ongoing war. A series of loud explosions rang out and smoke rose from the city's southern suburbs. Images broadcast on local television showed a huge crater where 6 buildings once stood as rescuers navigated the rubble. The strikes crushed residential buildings that sank beneath the ground, leaving a crater bigger than the size of a soccer field. Footage of the level of damage indicates that Israel had used 2,000-pound bombs, according to weapons experts. And it's only getting worse. Israeli airstrikes have hit inside Beirut's city limits for the first time since the 7th of October last year. The attack on Kola is a major development as the building targeted is at the heart of Beirut, in an area that has so far been spared. Israeli assault. It hit a Sunni area near the district's intersection. It has sent shockwaves across all of Lebanon, even in areas that were deemed safe thus far. Videos show chaotic scenes on the streets of Beirut. Until now, Israel's airstrikes on Beirut have focused on the southern part of the city, the densely populated and predominantly Shia neighborhoods where Hezbollah has a stronghold. The Israeli military has said that 35 rockets have been fired from Lebanon into northern Israel today. Some were intercepted, while others fell in open areas. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani says Iran will not leave any Israeli criminal acts unanswered. He added Iran does not seek war but is not afraid of it. His comments echo those of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has said that Israel's actions will not go unavenged. With the Middle East on the edge, the biggest question on everyone's mind is just what will Iran do next? Having dealt massive blows to Hezbollah in recent days and significantly weakened Hamas, and knowing that it enjoys the full backing of the United States, analysts say Israel not only wants to inflict enormous damage on its enemies, it also wants to reshape the Middle East. One thing Iran watchers and some Israelis are warning about is that if the so-called ring of fire, Iran's build-up of allies and proxies formed over many years, is now shown to be flawed and ineffective, it leaves the question of whether Iran could decide to develop a nuclear weapon. If they do so and the Americans discover it, that could lead to a US bombing campaign against Iran. That's the kind of wider scenario that people are worried this turbulence could lead to. Israel's actions are proving enormously popular at home though, and there is a feeling in Israel that they have scored a mighty victory and they now have the opportunity to reshape things. If you consider that their strategic goal with Hezbollah is to get the more than 60,000 people in northern Israel back to their homes that they've been forced to leave, then killing Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah does not really bring them any closer to that goal. Hezbollah is still firing rockets, and although they're not causing huge amounts of damage to Israeli targets, people cannot still return to their homes while this continues. Since the 17th of September, Israel has dealt the Iran-backed militia one body blow after another. First, the pager and walkie-talkie blasts, then a massive airstrike on southern Beirut, which killed senior Hezbollah commander Ibrahim Akil, followed 3 days later by the start of a brutal bombing campaign. By Friday evening, when Nasrallah was killed in a bombing that flattened multiple buildings, Hezbollah senior leadership had been almost entirely eliminated. Killing Hassan Nasrallah was a step towards changing the balance of power in the region for years to come. That's what analysts say. In fact, this is a statement that's been made by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself. He declared this on Saturday. The Israeli leader sees an opportunity opening up for a fundamental reconfiguration of power in the Middle East. So what will Israel do next? What is its end game? Is a ground invasion into Lebanon now almost inevitable? And how will Iran respond? Analysts say Hezbollah's continued losses in its war with Israel have created a disastrous situation for Iran. Tehran's preferred way of war is to operate through its proxies, and Hezbollah was the diamond in its crown. It played a major role both in their struggle against Israel and their efforts to create what they call the axis of resistance in the region across Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza and Yemen, who give Iran strategic depth against its enemies. But the blows to Hezbollah have come as a major setback to Iran. How it will respond still remains unclear. Reports say the Biden administration is worried that an attack from Iran is possibly being planned in the wake of Israel's killing of Hezbollah leader Nasrallah. It is believed to be working with Israel in this regard. US officials have been quoted as saying joint defenses are being prepared to ward off an attack. But at the same time, the United States is working round the clock to avert another major escalation that could lead to an all-out war in the region.
I speak a lot about the leaders of Iran. Yet at this pivotal moment, I want to address you, the people of Iran. I want to do so directly, without filters, without middlemen. Every day, you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza. Yet every day, that regime plunges our region deeper into darkness and deeper into war. Every day, their puppets are eliminated. Ask Muhammad Def. Ask Nasrallah. There is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach. There's nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss. The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. Imagine if all the vast money the regime wasted on nuclear weapons and foreign wars were invested in your children's education and improving your health care, in building your nation's infrastructure, water, sewage, all the other things that you need. Imagine that. But you know one simple thing. Iran's tyrants don't care about your future, but you do. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace. When that day comes, the terror network that the regime built in 5 continents will be bankrupt, dismantled. Iran will thrive as never before. Global investment, massive tourism, brilliant technological innovation based on the tremendous talents that exist inside Iran. Doesn't that sound better than endless poverty, repression, and war? From Qom to Isfahan, from Shiraz to Tabriz, there are tens of millions of good and decent people with thousands of years of history behind them and a brilliant future ahead of them. Don't let a small group of fanatic theocrats crush your hopes and your dreams. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. The entire world deserves better. I know you don't support the rapists and murderers of Hamas and Hezbollah, but your leaders do. You deserve more. The people of Iran should know Israel stands with you. May we together know a future of prosperity and peace.
سنواجه أي احتمال ومستعدون.
We will face any possible attack, and we are ready.
بريا فالقوات.
If the Israelis decide to enter by land, the resistance forces are ready for a ground engagement.
نحن أعدينا وتجهزنا.
We have prepared and got ready, and with our trust in God Almighty, we are confident that the Israeli army will not achieve its goals, and we will emerge victorious from this battle.
سنختار أمينا عاما للحزب.
We will choose a Secretary General for the party as soon as possible, according to the party's approved selection mechanism.
في الحزب ونملأ القيادات.
And we will fill the leadership positions on a permanent basis.
كونوا مطمئنين أن الخيارات.
Rest assured that the choices will be easy because they are clear and because we are united.
على قلب واحد.
Yes, I will be talking to him. I'll tell you what I say to him when I talk to him.
Yes, sir. Can an all-out war in the Middle East be avoided?
It has to be. We really have to avoid it. And we've already taken precautions relative to our embassies and personnel who want to leave. But we're not there yet, but we're working like hell with the French and many others to see if we can avoid it. Thank you.
As fears grow of a significant escalation of the conflict in the Middle East, with reports suggesting that a ground invasion of Lebanon is now imminent. Significantly, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken to his Israeli counterpart. In fact, Prime Minister Modi tweeted a short while ago saying, "I spoke to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the recent developments in West Asia. Terrorism has no place in our world. It is crucial to prevent regional escalation and ensure the safe release of all hostages. India is committed to supporting efforts for an early restoration of peace and stability." So India, in a sense, once again reiterating its message of peace. And the Prime Minister, very importantly, saying it's crucial to prevent regional escalation. Well, those are the fears that the world has right now. What happens next in the Middle East? What is Israel going to do next? Is a ground invasion of Lebanon on the cards? And another very critical question, just how is Iran likely to respond to all of this? Remember, the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has already said that Israel's acts will not go unavenged. He was referring specifically to the assassination of the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah last Friday. We'll put all these critical questions to our panel of experts in just a moment after this quick break on Global Lens. Stay with us.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है Money9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
This is News9 Live, India's only digital exclusive live stream. For the early adopters, bringing you the news 24/7. For the smart audiences on the smartest TVs. News9 Live. Stream now on your smart TVs.
Fast. My God, isn't she your daughter?
Yes.
She's playing football. This is boys' game. Make her study. If she doesn't get a good job, she will get a good match. Will you win the world by playing football?
Yes, auntie. My daughter will win the world by playing football.
Let's go to Germany.
World's largest football talent hunt, News9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. In association with DFB Pokal, Bundesliga, BVB and India Football Center. Train and play matches in Europe. Register now and fly to Germany. IndianTigersandTigresses.com.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna, and we're discussing the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. What happens next? Let's put that question to our panelists. Joining me on Global Lens tonight is Captain Alexander Grinberg. He is with the IDF Military Intelligence Research Department and also a Persian Iran-Israel expert at the Jerusalem Institute for Security and Strategy. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, a defense and geopolitical analyst, also joins us from New Delhi. And completing the panel tonight is Dr. Prem Anand Mishra, Middle East expert and former faculty at the Nelson Mandela Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution at Delhi's Jamia Millia Islamia University. A warm welcome to all my guests. If I could begin with our Israeli guest, Captain Alexander Grinberg, let me start with you. Now, the Washington Post has reported just a short while ago that Israel has told Washington that a limited ground incursion into Lebanon will begin imminently. Most believe it's only a matter of when and not if. The question is, while Israel may have dealt body blows to both Hamas and Hezbollah, is the country not concerned that Iran could actually get involved in this entire conflict and things could spin completely out of control?
Hi, thank you for inviting me. First, I don't think things can spin out of their control because Iran has no physical possibility to get involved. The options on Iran are very limited, given that Iran is a very weak country in terms of conventional military might. Second, the ground incursion or maneuvers indispensable because the goal of this whole operation is to make our northern border safe so that the Israeli refugees inside Israel be able to return back to their homes. It will never happen if they see again Hezbollah fighters in front of their houses. So the only way to move Hezbollah away from the south of Lebanon is just to make them move away or destroy them. And of course, that's it. But Iran, as I say, Iran, if we look at the behavior of the Iranian regime, it is completely shocked by what happened because it never foresaw such a possibility. Also, given into consideration the joy of so many Iranians over the death of the terrorist Nasrallah.
All right. Dr. Prem Mishra, let me ask you this question. There is no doubt that Israel has dealt body blows to Hezbollah in just the last couple of weeks. First, the pager and walkie-talkie attacks. Then, of course, the killings of many senior commanders of Hezbollah. And then, of course, what happened on Friday was a massive blow that perhaps most people did not see coming, the assassination of the Hezbollah chief himself. Following that, in fact, Iran's supreme leader has gone into hiding, reports say. While Ayatollah Ali Khamenei maintains that Iran will not let these acts by Israel go unavenged, what do you think are Israel's options at this point in time? Our Israeli guest feels that Iran is in a significantly weaker position today, given that its most important and reliable proxy militia, Hezbollah, is in a very, very weak position today. But is there a real concern that Iran could get directly involved in this conflict? The question on everyone's mind is, how is Iran likely to respond to what's happened in the last 2 weeks?
I think just to respond to you that, I echo that at least for some extent that what our Israeli guest has suggested. There is some truth to that, because it's not just about in military infrastructure and military warfare capabilities. Iranians have lost a lot in the psychological warfare, particularly what has happening since Qasem Soleimani from the United States side, and then Haniyeh's killing inside Iran, and then Nasrallah, and then entire military, structures that brigade structures that Hezbollah had, that all has completely lost their lives. So in that way, there is a kind of a serious blow to the Iranians. Not in their strategic depth has really weakened, but look, Iranians are also not that. In terms of that politically unaware of the situation, that what if it directly goes into the war? It has its own political calculation, and it is sending the messages across. In the United Nations General Assembly, the Pezeshkian has said that he is ready to establish at least a better relations with the West. My own hunch is that particularly in foreign policy choices, and particularly in the Middle East, it is the Ali Khamenei and the IRGC takes the final call. And if you look at them, they will wait and watch. I think they will. They are not in a particularly in this position that they will armored favorably to Hezbollah to go on an all-out war with Israel. And similarly, its supports has really waned, whether to Hamas or. But look, Iranians' calculation is not that it has. Not for decades of that supports to proxies. It has a channel of communication with the Iraqi militias, Kataib, Hezbollah. There are other Shia militias group. Houthis are another kind of an important militias proxies from the Iranian side. And you understand also that it is not just one way of war. It's a hybrid warfare. The trade routes that connects Indian Oceans to Mediterranean, and that Iranians have a lot of control over that. So in many ways that Iranians have a lot of options, but at this stage, because three prior things. First thing that Iranians, particularly Khamenei, is losing a huge legitimacy within its own people in Iran. If you recently the last elections, only 40% people came to the polls despite his requests repeatedly. So that is another blow to him, that wider legitimation that is required to take decisions And since this continuous blow to Iran, the Khamenei is also facing some sort of a serious blow that what could happen to the next, in terms of replacement. So there is a mixed bag feelings. And the last point is that Iranians are not in a position that they would wish that if there is some kind of a full-scale war, even for an immediate time that it really tries to do with Israel, there are high chances that their own political calculation with the upcoming US elections will go some sort of astray. So they're also looking at the US election. They would be happy if Kamala Harris wins over, Donald Trump, which has a much better support to Israel. So there are many certain things which is coming up at this stage that Iranians are in the dark. They do not understand that how to respond to the psychological things, particularly with the kind of the communication channel, the devices explosion. They were not ready with this sort of a kind of an exceptional strategic blow.
A lot of this was certainly quite unexpected and has taken the world and indeed Iran by surprise. Let me take this to Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, while of course, we know that the Iranian regime is quite unpopular at home. We've seen massive protests. I don't think that has ever made any difference, frankly, to the Iranian regime and its policies. But does Iran have a real problem on its hands, given that the diamond in its crown, Hezbollah, is now significantly weakened, something that perhaps Iran did not see coming? How big a setback has this been for Iran? And let me in fact even ask you this question. After Nasrallah, do you believe Israel could actually go directly after Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the Iranian supreme leader who seems to have gone into hiding since Nasrallah's assassination? But if they do that, that would certainly mean war with Iran.
Thank you, Nia. At the outset, yes, total paralysis of decision making now. Absolutely critical times for both Hezbollah, the proxy of Iran, and Iran itself. Iran, as you rightly said, the jewel in their crown was Hezbollah, and they thought that Hezbollah would be able to turn the entire events in their favor, and therefore they were being equipped, they were being trained, they were being funded, they were being given all the political support, and the 1985 resolution of Hezbollah was very clear that they wanted no influence of the West in Lebanon and to root out and rather wipe out Israel and to be suzerain to the Iran Ayatollah. So if that be so, Hezbollah was and in no doubt working at the behest of Iran and total proxy, Hamas, Hezbollah and Houthis. But Hezbollah, the crown. Now, Hezbollah, by the way it had just not been, I would say, a kind of a radical organization, a terrorist organization, a blacklisted organization, but it also had a political thing because it had seats in the parliament, 13 seats in the parliament out of 128 in Lebanon. It's a Shiite organization in a multi-ethnic society where you have Christians who are almost 30% Christians in Lebanon even today, though they were at one point 70%, at least they're 30% today, and they do count as Shia. And we know who the president should be, who the prime minister should be, who the speaker should be. So they have decided who would be Sunni, who would be Shia, and who out of them would be a Sunni. So you find all of this over there. At this point of time when Hezbollah, especially the total crippled leadership is gone, wiped out. There's nobody. Even the one who is expected to take over the reins after Nasrallah having gone, the Safeddin, he also, though a cousin of Nasrallah, married to Soleimani's daughter, and therefore you find it's almost like a family affair, the whole thing which is moving in Lebanon. Now, even by the UN resolution, what is Israel's concern? That's the most important thing. Israel, after 2000 and after it had gone in 2006 and after that short 34-day war, there was a resolution 1701 which allowed the Israelis to pull back from the Blue Line. And between the Blue Line and the Litany River, there were to be the Lebanese army, not more than 15,000 in number, and of course, equal number of the UNIFIL, that is the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, comprising of 50 countries. So that is what the whole thing was all about. Therefore, in that southern Lebanon, or you could call the buffer zone between the Litany River and the Blue Line, and then of course the northern Israel, at that point of time you found that the Lebanese have virtually given up because there is a political to the Hezbollah. Hezbollah have virtually taken over Lebanon, as a result of which the Lebanese army have no say whatsoever, and they've entered southern Lebanon and threatening Israel. So Israel all along, ever since its occupation, you can say civil war in Lebanon, which lasted from 1975 to 1990, till Israel was occupying Lebanon in 2000, pulled out of 2000, 2006 war for 34 days, and all this, Israel probably thought that yes, all this might lead to something favorable, and therefore that buffer has been lost. And there are tunnels now, the whole lot of it is there. So Israel is absolutely, apprehensive. And since 7th of October, 70,000 people, as you rightly said, from northern Israel have also been displaced. Another about 1 lakh or so have got displaced from southern Lebanon. So this kind of a situation where Iran thought it would be able to push Israel into a corner, with Hamas not being able to totally eliminate Hamas for about 11 months now. In this kind of a situation where Hamas is still holding on, whatever it may be, is still holding on and are not totally given up.
And that is a good point. Hamas is still holding on 11 months down the road. Therefore, could some nasty surprises be in store for Israel, even vis-a-vis Hezbollah? Because history has taught Israel some bitter lessons, hasn't it? I need to take a quick break here on Global Lens. We'll continue this discussion with our guests on the other side.
Cooking is an act of love. The first act of love we receive from our mothers in the families.
Modern Indian food is all about contemporary and innovative approach to traditional Indian cooking.
Representation it's also important, no?
I want to wear this white coat every day and then be a chef.
There are stories. If we name a whiskey's ingredients, then there is a whole story behind that.
Cooking food is like a therapy, and eating one is like a pleasure I can give it to myself. With Lounge Nights, I'm on a journey to celebrate and recognize the best food and nightlife establishments in various cities across India.
Radico presents Lounge Nights every Saturday and Sunday only on News9 Live.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna, and we're discussing the escalating tensions in the Middle East. Let me go back to our Israeli guest, Captain Alexander Grinberg. I want to ask you, now that the Hezbollah chief has been assassinated by Israel, and frankly, very, very few people saw it coming, is there a real possibility of Iran going after the Iranian supreme leader himself? And like I asked you earlier, do you not believe that there is a real threat of Iran getting directly involved in the conflict, something that it's not done all this while? All these years it has fought through its proxies. Could that change this time around, given how much the tensions have escalated between the two sides? And could some calculations on Israel's part go wrong?
Well, I don't think Israel has any intentions to go after Khamenei, but Prime Minister Netanyahu made it clear for all the Iranian leaders who organize and plotting assassinations and terrorism, they must know that they can be next if it is needed. But usually Israel never does it because, well, it's a leader of a state, not of a terrorist organization. But Iran won't be able to hide behind the back of its puppets and proxies. And second, what you asked, again, Iran would be happy to do anything, but it cannot because it has no possibilities. If we talk about a direct confrontation between Iran and Israel, it has already happened. It happened on 14th of April when Iran, for the first time in history, conducted an unprecedented missile and drone attack on Israel. And this is what Iran could do for a second time, theoretically, but again, I don't know how many missiles and drones it has, but it also is wrought with serious risks for Iran because now Iran clearly realizes that the answer Israel may be crushing and unpredictable because, again, one of the failures of Iranian strategy consists of their inability or unwillingness to foresee some contingencies. They never have plan B or C. So when something unpredictable or unforeseen happens, they really don't know what to do because their options are limited. But it's true, yes, Iran could try to conduct terrorist attacks abroad against Israelis and Jewish civilians, as it already did several times. There is such a possibility, but it's not a direct war, or it is, of course, not a regional war that simply doesn't exist.
All right, you do not believe that Iran actually has the capability to engage in a direct conflict with Israel at this point in time. And then, of course, if that does happen, there is always the possibility, or many would say the inevitability, of the United States getting involved as well. Dr. Premanand Mishra, let me ask you this. You know, there are many who've pointed out that Israel's recent moves, including or particularly the assassination of the Hezbollah chief, have been very popular at home. We've seen massive celebrations amongst Israelis in recent days. Of course, it started with the pager and walkie-talkie attacks. Now, this is, of course, a great opportunity for Netanyahu to regain some of the lost support at home. Therefore, would it be fair to expect this Israeli offensive against Hezbollah to only escalate from here on? As I said at the start of the show, Washington Post has reported earlier this evening that Israel has already conveyed to Washington that a limited ground incursion into Lebanon will begin imminently. How do you see things panning out in that scenario?
I think there are a couple of things going to happen. One is that there might be a possibility that a small scale incursion from the ground forces will happen. At least, I think in today also, I think there are some reports that the Israeli forces has gone inside to collect information. That's what they say. That and secondly, it is really worked well with the Netanyahu's political calculation. The last poll that has happened within Israel, that his party, Liquid Party, has gained a lot of strength, particularly which has completely gone missing after the 7th October attack. We see that in all possibilities, Netanyahu's would like to continue this some sort of whether how far it would be a kind of an excursion at the smaller scale or a larger scale ground forces. That is yet to happen, but at least for some extent, it is definitely going to work out in Israel's favor. And I think that in all possibilities and the calculations, Netanyahu's it is not just Israel's war, but it is also Netanyahu's own war, because it was many experts who was giving him an obituary that his political career is ending. But now you see that he's come back. He's the strongest than before, and there are high chances that this the offense that we see from Israel sides, whether in Lebanon, whether against Houthis, whether in Hamas, including West Bank. Today also there are hundreds of people have been arrested. Some of them were killed. So there is no possibility that Iran will stop here, expecting that regrouping of this kind of hostile groups from other side, whether Iranian proxies in their neighborhood or otherwise. So I think it is kind of both in terms of in sync with that, it is working well with Netanyahu's, and overall the idea of Israel's own security, which fundamentally believe that its own security can be only possible if it is continues remain in war, because since 48 it has been in war with some form or the other, and that's for the good or the bad reason. This is not going to end, and this is going to really help. It has helped Netanyahu, and we could see that there will be some sort of more actions. Whether it might not happen now in Gaza, because more than 100 still hostages are there, but we could see that there are some sort of serious blow will try from the Israeli side to go against Iran.
This is not ending anytime soon, and you're right. One should never hurriedly write anyone's political obituary. Let me take this to Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. General Kulkarni, even if the war against Hamas has now gone on for almost a year and more than 100 hostages are still stuck in Gaza, fact is that the recent moves against Hezbollah seem to have bolstered support for Netanyahu at home. He seems to think he is winning. Is that reason enough for him to intensify his campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon? Do you believe a ground invasion is now imminent? Also, for the benefit of our viewers, if you could just explain what exactly do these quote-unquote limited raids really mean? The Israeli military has said they've carried out limited raids inside Lebanon in recent days. Is that almost always a precursor to a ground invasion in your view?
The ground invasion, Neha, what happens is that entire, as I said, till the Litany River, that's what the interest is of the Israelis basically, and that there are already UNIFIL troops over there. That means the United Nations troops, almost about 10 to 11,000. Some of them are Indians also, because after 1997, India also participated, though they've been there since 1978. But since 1997, India is part of that contingent of 50 countries in that small little buffer zone, about 1,000 odd square kilometers. So there is enough intelligence that the Israelis have about that particular area. But yes, Israelis have been saying that a lot of tunnels have come up. The Lebanese army has made no dent. The Hezbollah has been firing on and off, though they have rockets. They had supposedly about 150,000 rockets, but with the kind of ruthless bombardment and the softening of the target which the Israelis have done, not only that the leadership has gone, but most of all their rockets also would have almost, say, about 50% destruction that have been done, because all of them would not have been at one place. But this air bombardment, these airstrikes, ruthless airstrikes, and the kind of destruction that is caused would lead Hezbollah to nowhere. Now is the right time for Israel to be able to carry on, because they've already gathered around the blue line, and they've got their tanks, they've got the infantry, they've got the artillery, everything. All that they need is to go in and make sure, at which the intelligence, they would be almost gathering it from the UNIFIL. UNIFIL troops over there would have been able to give them. Plus, Israelis themselves also would be having their own intelligence network. Mossad is so much so that they can knock off Nasrallah. So they know exactly. It is available to them. They would want to do it, but they would rather not incur casualties. That is very important for Israel. Israel cares for their men. They will not incur casualties. If it could be done, clear run, because right now the Hezbollah's command and control is zero. They are almost on the back foot. Their morale is in the boots. They don't know what's hit them and from where. And now is the time to do it. If Israel has to do it, it is now, because that buffer will be there. Because they're holding the buffer. Once they hold the buffer, they hold the Golan Heights. Gaza, which they will not, I'm sure they decided once to give it to them, to the PLO. PLO in turn could not handle it. It went to Hamas. And now we know for the last 20 years what has happened of Gaza Strip. So the Gaza Strip probably will again go back to Israel. In West Bank, we know what's going on over there at this point of time. Even the West Bank, if the 30-odd lakh Palestinians over there are not able to stay and be able to live with the Israelis over there, they will also have trouble. But notwithstanding the West Bank, at least the Gaza Strip, they're holding on. They will not give it up. Now, this buffer would give Israelis a little bit of a space to be able to do it. Now, as far as the Iranians are concerned, now the Iranians know for themselves for very, very sure that this is not the time, because they are on the back foot. Otherwise, why else would Khamenei start going underground? You see the presidential voices, even after the killing of this chap over there, who the Hania. What happened? Hania got knocked off. A lot of noises were made. Even now, the foreign minister of Iran is making noises. But Iran has showed a lot of patience. And that patience, I feel the USA will reward Iran for not letting Israel attack Iran. Because Iran is not capable. Plus, at the same time, to be allowed that the president of Iran seems a little, a moderate person who is not making noises, but not, holding
yes,
on to patience.
they've talked multiple times about teaching Israel a lesson, including after the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian territory. You're quite right about that. But really, can Iran act on those threats? Very quickly, sir, I'm out of time, but I want to ask you one final question before we wrap up this discussion. Israel's defense minister recently said the center of the gravity is now moving north. It was a clear reference to the border with Lebanon, and we've seen what's happening in Lebanon in the last few days. The focus has clearly shifted to Hezbollah now. Do you believe that, Israel's military campaign in Gaza is in some ways winding down, though we cannot forget about those close to 100 hostages who are still stuck there?
Yes, again, but it depends on what we're talking about. Specifically military campaign in terms of military fight. Yes, it is winding down, but not because we're leaving Gaza, because indeed there, as you said, there are 70 hostages that are still there, but there is no need in an intense military fight. So because of that, Israel can afford to shift attention to the north. That's all. But it means that when the war in the north is over, so it will push back to Gaza.
Okay, once the war in the north is over, the attention will shift back to Gaza, says Captain Alexander Grinberg. On that note, I'd like to thank all my guests, Captain Grinberg, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni and Dr. Prem Anand Mishra. Thank you so much to all three of you for joining me on Global Lens tonight. All right, let's now turn our attention to India's neighborhood. And this story is from Nepal, which has been, in fact, wrecked by floods. Search and rescue teams in Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, are picking through wrecked homes after what has receded from monsoon floods that have killed at least 200 people around the Himalayan nation. Deadly floods and landslides are common across South Asia during the monsoon season from June to September, but experts say climate change is certainly making them worse. Entire neighborhoods in Kathmandu have been inundated after the heaviest rains in more than 2 decades, with the capital temporarily cut off from the rest of Nepal after landslides blocked highways. According to the latest figures, at least 200 people have died, over 120 are injured, and at least 26 are still missing, according to Nepal's Home Ministry. The police say at least 35 of those killed were buried alive when earth from a landslide careened into vehicles on a highway south of Kathmandu. Bulldozers are being used to clear nearly 24 sections of major roads leading into Kathmandu that have been blocked by debris. The Home Ministry says it's working to rescue numerous people who have been stranded on the highways. Rescuers are clearing mud from the worst-hit riverside neighborhoods around Kathmandu, many of them unauthorized slum settlements. Nepal's army says more than 4,000 people have been rescued, with helicopters, motorboats and rafts bringing stranded people to to safety. Many of those affected by the floods need safe drinking water and temporary housing. Merchants in Kathmandu say damage to intercity roads has drastically cut the supply of fresh fruits and vegetables into capital Kathmandu. A monitoring station at the Kathmandu airport recorded about 240 millimeters of rain over the weekend. That's the highest figure since 2002. Climate experts say rainfall of this kind is abnormal. They're calling it an extreme event. And talking about extreme events, well, they're taking place in many parts of the world. North Carolina in the United States has been left in ruins as a huge cleanup and recovery effort is underway after Hurricane Helene knocked out power for millions, destroyed roads and bridges, and caused dramatic flooding from Florida to Virginia. The storm's winds, rain, and storm surge killed at least 90 people in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Virginia. Some of the worst rains hit western North Carolina, where almost 30 inches fell on Mount Mitchell in Yancey County. Damage estimates range from $15 billion to more than $100 billion as water systems, communications, and critical transportation routes have taken a huge hit.
Areas of North Carolina hit hard by Hurricane Helene began a huge cleanup and recovery effort on Sunday. The storm has plowed through the southeastern United States over the past several days, destroying roads and bridges, knocking out power for millions, and